Okay, great. So this is the gamification workshop with Genially. I'm your host today, Oyindamola Ojueriameato. And for those of you that don't know me, I am the Chief Learning Officer at Bekamola Learning. It's a consultancy that provides learning design solutions to organizations. And we also have the training arm where we help the underrepresented gain skills in instructional design and digital learning design. Welcome to today. I'm a Genially ambassador, and I'm also a board director at the Learning Network here in the UK. So please put in the chat where you're joining from. Stephen from Lagos, Lyle from Lagos, Sophie from Kigali, Kingsley from Lagos. Please put in the chat where you're joining from, everyone. We're not going to waste time in starting. I like to know where people are joining from, even though it's pretty much like an old line. So this is what we're going to be doing today. I'm sorry for that distraction. So this is our these are learning outcomes for today. Temitayo is joining from Lincoln. Great. So our learning outcomes for today, as you can see, we're going to understand what gamification is all about. We're going to understand the elements of gamification, the types of gamification. We'll learn how to design gamified content. We'll learn about gamification content and gamification tricks. And then you'll be given an assignment to design a content which, when we have part 2 of this class, will be giving feedbacks and all. So let's get on with it. So before I start, does anybody have an idea of what gamification is about? Let's put in the chat if you have an idea of what gamification is all about. I would like to hear from you. And please don't feel that anything you're going to say is, even if you feel it's going to sound silly, I just want to understand where we are. What's your understanding of gamification? Let's put in the chat, or if you want to talk, that's allowed. Let me know what you understand by gamification.
Hello, is it possible to talk?
Okay.
Yes.
What's your name? Is it
Sophie.
Sophie?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah.
I understood from gamification that it's a range of elements that you can incorporate
Yeah.
when you design a course. And it can
Okay.
go from just simple rewards designed on the, for instance, Articulate Design course or even PowerPoints, but also some avatars, etc.,
Yeah.
etc.
Okay, great. You're right about using some elements, having avatar. Those are things you consider in gamification. Thanks for that. Lyle says delivering learning by introducing the elements of game. That's also correct. Thank you so much for those contributions from you, Sophie and Lyle. Temitayo says using games to know or buttress what has been taught. Well, that's an idea as well. Thank you. So I'll just go ahead and tell us what gamification is about. So gamification is basically a technique that involves applying game elements, game techniques, and game thinking in a non-game context in order to motivate action, promote learning, and solve a problem. So now you're using game elements. We're going to come to what game elements means. Game techniques. We're going to come to what those techniques mean, and game thinking. You use all of these things in a context that is not a game. For example, learning is not a game. It's serious. We want to use game elements like in games, what are the elements that we have in games? We have avatars, we have people get rewards. You move in stages, right? There's competition. These are elements. What are the techniques? There are rules. You move from one stage to the other, and you think like a gamer. It's like a competition. There's a challenge. These are the things that you apply in learning. One of the reasons for this is to motivate people to learn, and also to promote learning and solve problems. For example, there are some games that involve a simulation of a real life situation where people, it's like you're going on an adventure from one stage to the other, so that people can discover like treasures, which are like understanding things. So it's really usually realistic experience. It's challenging, it has rules, and there are defined objectives. Usually in a game, there's defined objectives. There's something you're trying to achieve. Either you're trying to open certain doors, or you're trying to win some money. There are objectives, and it's usually limited to an environment. It's achievable, and it involves a sense of progress and social aspects, and also recognition. So all the things that the three of you mentioned are actually in this. So thank you for those contributions. So let's move to examples. Let's talk about the examples of game elements. I mentioned a bit of them, some of them. So we have in games, some of the examples of the elements and techniques used in gamification are levels. What do you mean by levels? You move from one level to the other. There's competition in which you move from one stage. If you don't uncover, for example, we have some games like Mario. I'm old school. Or in this time, my children are playing, is it Minecraft, or those games that they play. You need to unlock a treasure, some points, before you move to the other one. So there are levels. So how does this apply to learning? We have this playing out in a situation where you have lessons. Maybe there's a course, there are lessons, and you design that course in such a way that if people do not finish a particular course, do the quiz and understand it, do the course, understand, do the quiz and get probably up to 80% in the quiz to show their understanding, they can't have access to the next level. That's part of gamification. So gamification is not so much about playing a game, but it's just using the gamification elements. Like in the levels, there's competition at times, there's cooperation, you get points. You get points when you do a quiz, right? There are leaderboards, there are winners and losers, there are courses, there are some interactive and social learning that you do in groups, where you want to you ask people to be involved in some activities, and you award the group that has the best or a better performance, or points, right? We have leaderboards on our LMSs where we have certain courses, and there's a reward for anyone, reward in form of leaderboards, in terms of badges for anyone who does better. And there's some LMS have configurations such that the person that has the highest points all the time is pointed out on the leaderboard. And we have chances. There's chance mechanic, like the mechanics of a dice or a card. Okay, there are certain scenario-based learning in which you are giving different scenarios, or a scenario, and they are given options to choose from. There's a chance that if you choose an option, it will be wrong, and if you choose one, it may be right. There's probability there. So that is gamification, and a gamification element. We have avatars. We have a player. There's someone who is playing. There's a character in a scenario. In a game, there's always a character. There's aesthetics. What's aesthetics? That's talking about different colored spaces on the game. You can have different, in different stages. The visual design is the aesthetics, and then there are objectives to be achieved. There are rules put in place. There's risk, there's challenge. So these are the different elements and techniques that you apply in your learning design that you can say it is gamified learning. So you can decide. So your learning doesn't necessarily need to have a game layout. But once you have some elements, if you have a course that has a quiz in it, and if people don't pass that quiz, they can't move to the next level. Even if there's no other elements, then your learning is gamified. Okay, if you have your learning designed in such a way that there are different stages that people move from one to the other, and they gain points, it's gamified learning. If there are challenges, people have to think of what to say. I mean, they have to think and reflect and think before they give you an answer. It's gamified. So this is what gamification is about. You apply, game elements and techniques, and these are examples of game elements. So and that brings us to why gamification. Why is gamification a technique that people use? Why should it be considered at all? And the reason for this is because of the motivation that it gives for people to learn. A lot of people will learn because they know that there's a point they're going to get marks, and there's what we call the intrinsic motivation, and there's what we also call the extrinsic motivation. There are two different types of motivation. The intrinsic motivation is the one that provides, the kind of motivation that comes from feeling of accomplishment. It gives a sense of autonomy, mastery, in a situation where people take learning because they want to get, for example, a certificate. A situation where people involve in a particular learning because they've heard that there's a reward for someone who is, okay, not reward now. It's more about personal accomplishment. It gives a sense of accomplishment. And then at times, the fact that you can do your learning by yourself whenever you want, the autonomy you get, that is the kind of motivation that gamification gives. And people use gamification elements to get people to be involved in learning because they are motivated to. So gamification, provides intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, which can be in form of persuasion and emotion. So the intrinsic motivation is about your emotions, how you feel when you learn. For example, somebody decides that they're going to take a particular course on LinkedIn, and then you're going to get a certificate that you're going to be able to display on your profile. There's a sense of accomplishment. You want to be involved in something that gives you recognition. That is your motivation. And people, learning designers put such motivations into the learning to get people to be motivated. Now, there's what we call the persuasion, which is extrinsic. When people get involved in activities because of what they're going to earn, the reward, or because of the fact that they do not want to be punished. For example, in an organization, people get involved in certain compliance training because they know that if they don't, it's going to impact on their on their what's it called, when their leader or their line manager is going to do their performance review. So because they don't want to be punished, they get involved. So these are gamification, elements that you put into learning. People get trophies, reward. So the intrinsic one is based on the feeling and emotion you get, and the extrinsic one is based on the reward you're going to get. So a good gamification effort will have a proper balance of both types of motivation. All right. So does anyone have a question before I move to the next thing? I do not want to bombard us with too much information. We're going to get into the design, right? So any question before we move to the next thing? All right. So we talked about gamification elements, right? I've talked about quite a number of them. Thank you for those responses. So gamification elements are grouped or categorized into three. We have the dynamics, we have the mechanics, and we have the components. So there are different elements of gamification, but they are categorized into three different groups. The first group is the dynamics. And what does dynamics mean? This includes, the story and the constraints of the game. What exactly gives you that's what establishes connection for you in the course. For example, in a game, usually there's a story, there's an adventure, there's a scenario. It tells you about the scenario, what you're going to be accomplishing, what's the objective of the learning. That is the dynamics. What is the flow of your course? Are there going to be lessons, moving from one lesson to the other? Is it going to be scenario based, where there's a scenario and people are having to choose, considering the three C's, where you have a challenge, you make your choices, and you have your consequences based on the choices you make. So that is the dynamics of the game. So there are elements that are related to the dynamics. Now, the other elements that are categorized under mechanics. So what's mechanics? Mechanics are the rules of the game. We're talking about the instructions that generally motivate you and give you commitment to learn. That's what the mechanics is about. And then the components. The components are the main elements of the game, like the component. We're talking about the avatar. On your layout, you see there's a character, the avatar. If you're talking about points, what do you use as your points? The progress bars, the badges, the levels, the leaderboards. So those are the three categories. We're talking about the objectives. We're talking about the rules of the game, and we're also talking about the main components that you see physically on your course. So still talking about the types of gamification and the fact that we have three different elements. I would like us okay, before I ask that question, let me quickly take us through this. So now we've talked about the elements, we've talked about the different types. Can anybody mention in the chat now the different types of gamification that I've talked about? I mean, the different elements of gamification. We're going to be talking about the types of gamification now. The three different categories of gamification. Can you put in the chat if you remember any one of them? The three different categories of gamification. Okay, scoring levels. Well, those are elements of gamification. But the three categories of the elements, yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you for that. We have talked about the dynamics, we've talked about the mechanics, and we've talked about the components. The dynamics, talking about the actual story, the scenario and the objective of and the flow of your course. The mechanics, talking about the rules, what are the rules that you set in place, like people cannot move to one state before they do the other. People have to score 80% in the quiz before they move to the other, things like that. And then the components are like majorly like the visuals. You're talking about the avatar, the scores, the points, the visual display and all. Thank you for those responses. So let's talk about the types of gamification. So now, the reason we're talking about the types of gamification is because there are different types, and these types are based on the needs and of the objectives of the course that you're creating. You need to have an objective, right? It's the type of gamification that you're going to choose is dependent on the people, the players, dependent on the specific users. So you need to really understand your users and know what works for them. And then the different ones have different blends of the components and mechanics. We've talked about components being the actual, display, the elements you see physically. We've talked about the mechanics being the rules of the game. And these two, there's a different blend for different ones. So let's start. The first type of gamification is the reward-based. And what do we mean by reward-based? It means it focuses on achievement of individual goals. And it focuses on rewards that are given after you've achieved a set of goals. For example, you have a goal to be achieved, you have a course that you need to do, you don't get the reward until you've done it. For example, if you want to do a course on LinkedIn now, many times the motivation for doing some courses on LinkedIn, for example, is because of the certificate. You want to be able to display it on your profile, LinkedIn profile, put it on your resume to say you have this skill, and then you go ahead and do that skill. But do you actually get the certificate if you don't finish? No. So there has to be a completion of what you're doing before you get the reward. So it's called reward based. There's a reward, there's a certificate that you're getting, right? In a corporate setting, you get to be involved in certain courses, certain training, and then if you're involved in that training, you stand a chance of being promoted. Let's say, for example, you go and you're involved in a leadership training and also demonstrating leadership, you stand a chance of being promoted. So there's a reward that comes with that training, and that is why, you know. And for that kind of gamification, there's the type of element components that are going to be used will be determined by what you're trying to achieve. The type of mechanics will also be determined by that. There's a social and collaborative gamification, and what this means is that social and collaborative is about people working together in a team, working together as a team. Is based on, this gamification is based on teamwork, is based on collaboration. User work together, they must work together to achieve, to go through a challenge and achieve an objective. For example, in games, there are certain games like adventure games where people appear, are grouped, and in those groups there are challenges that they are given, and each person has a contribution to make to be able to get that objective achieved. So teamwork, group work, collaboration work is a form of gamification, especially if there's a challenge to be done. We have our bootcamp in Bekamola going on, and one of the groups that are working on the project, what I saw them do, they had templates to complete certain tasks, and what they did was they shared the responsibility. You go and do this, I will do this, this person will do that, and they came together and shared. That is gamification in action. There's a challenge to be achieved, and you have your different tasks to do to achieve a single objective. So that's social and collaborative. And then we have level and progression based. This is a situation where you need to do different courses, and this applies in, learners must overcome different stages or levels one after the other to move to the next stage. That happens in a lot of games, especially the ones that young people do these days. So and in this case there's complexity that increases as they progress, and this really motivates them to want to continue because it's now getting more complex. There's something we called in designing your learning outcomes, there's something we call scaffolding, and you use the Bloom's taxonomy and the ABCD structure to create your learning outcomes. Your first learning outcome, which speaks to the first topic that you're going to do, should not be the hardest. It should always go from the lowest level of complexity to the highest. And this is a gamification, element or technique. And still talking about the types of gamification, I want us to recall, we've talked about the elements of gamification. We've talked about the types of gamification. Can any one of us recall any course that you have taken that has any gamification element at all? And the second question is, in that course, what was the gamification element in that course that motivated you to learn? Was that motivation intrinsic? Was it extrinsic? Let's put in the chat. And if you want to talk, that's okay. Is there any course that you've done that you can recall? So I'm going to take us back to the gamification elements to help us. These are the examples of gamification elements. levels, leaderboard, aesthetics, objectives. So is there any course that you've taken recently, or even if it's not recent, that had any gamification element that you can recall? Can you put in the chat or just say it out? Okay, Sophie says, in a job position, part of the onboarding course is there was simulations, rewards, badges, and playful characters. Amazing. So that onboarding course, what was it about? Was it some form of compliance course? So there's some characters. I like that. So if you're going to talk about, so did you feel motivated to actually take that course? Was the motivation intrinsic or extrinsic? Did you do the course because you had to do it, because there's a reward, or not doing it was going to get you penalized? That is, extrinsic.
So let's say yes, not doing it was going to be penalized because you were supposed to complete it to continue the operations and the onboarding, for sure, to complete it.
Great.
But I think the engagement rose up very much. The quality of the completion was really then helped by the elements of gamification in terms of just motivation, having fun, it being playful and very interactive.
Okay, great. Amazing. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I see someone else typing another thing here. So Ellie Snap, I hope I pronounced that name well. So we're running a course to clients with gamification. They are divided in groups to complete sets of competition to win a virtual tea with a VIP. We are in asset management. That's amazing. So that's some form of social and collaborative learning where people work together to complete a task in order to win. There's a reward here, which is having a virtual tea. I want to be part of your team right now. So any other example? Let me go back to, so that is also extrinsic. There's a reward. So Sophie's example has a combination of intrinsic and extrinsic. So let's see. Are there any other examples before we move to the next thing? These are gamification elements to help us remember. So I'll go back to the question. Okay, great. So still on the types of gamification, we mentioned that the different types of gamification have different blends of components and mechanics. Can somebody tell me what components is about again and what mechanics is about? I don't want to be talking over our head. I'm repeating these terms to help us, understand them more. So can you put in the chat what you understand by, we've talked about the courses that we did that had gamification elements. We've talked about the different types of gamification: reward-based, social and collaborative, and then the level and progression-based. Now here, we've talked about, the fact that there are different types of users. So understanding your users will determine which one you choose. So here I want to talk about the users. And when you know your user, you also will know what kind of components to use and what kind of mechanics to use. So it always starts with the user. Every learning design starts with understanding your users. It has to be user-centric. Okay, so I have two examples. Okay, so Temita's mechanics is about roles, true, and the components, the main elements, the game, avatar, points, progress, badges. Thank you for that. Thank you for those responses. So now, talking about reward-based, we said the reward-based is the one in which you have to, where you have to complete the course before you get the reward. That is a reward-based gamification. And the type of people that you provide that you design that type of training for are people that are achievers, that are driven by status or winning. So I talked about, I'm using LinkedIn course a lot now, or you get involved in a boot camp or on Coursera. Many times you go for certain trainings, we do certain courses online or paid courses, free or paid, because we want to achieve a certificate which we believe would help us to demonstrate our skill. Now, you have to complete it before you you get the reward. So now, the kind of people that you design reward-based gamified learning for are people that are achievers, people that the motivation for them is because they want a particular status. They want to display that they have achieved something. So for that kind of course, for that kind of gamified course, you are looking at mechanics like quizzes. Usually in those kind of courses, after you've given the content, there is a quiz to show that these people have taken the to show the understanding of the course. And you probably want to peg it at, if you don't get up to 80%, you can't move to the next one. And then simple interactive games. We're going to look at examples of those. And then the type of components that you have are points and badges. So you have those kind of components in that type of gamified learning. Now, talking about social and collaborative learning, the type of people that you design that kind of learning for. So understand that gamified learning doesn't mean it has to look like a game. It doesn't have to be e-learning. It could be face-to-face. It's just the concept of what you are teaching people. It could be face-to-face. It could be virtual. It could be instructor-led. It could be, self-managed e-learning. Either format you choose, it's just the concept of how you deliver your course that we are looking at now. So the kind of people that you deliver social and collaborative types of gamification for are socializers, people that love to interact with others, people that learn better when they are involved in group learning, peer-to-peer learning. And what kind of mechanics are you looking at? Team activities, you're looking at role play, you're looking at competitions, you're looking at board games. For example, Ellie Snap, I'm not sure if that's your name, give us an example of the asset management organization running a course for clients in which they're divided into groups to complete sets of activities, and then when they win, there's a virtual team with a VIP. So that's the kind of social and collaborative. You use team activities, you use board game. Those are the kind of gamification mechanics that you use. And then the components will be like badges. There are tools that they use in the activities. There are points, there are rankings. And then coming to level and progression based, we are talking about explorers, people that love to interact with games. You want to complete and improve on yourself. So this is a kind of gamification that will be involved in a course that is like that has different levels. For example, you have a course in which there is level 1, 2, and 3. Let's say there is beginner course, there is intermediate, and there is advanced. So that is a gamification element. From there is beginner, there is medium, and advanced. That's setting your flow like that is gamified. So talking about gamification is like, it's not like you are playing game, but using gamification elements, being able to show that. So many of the courses that we've been involved in actually have gamified learning. So you just need to understand what gamification is about to be able to identify what elements you have used, was used in that learning. And then people that want to improve on yourself, you design a course where there are lessons that is level and progression based career development courses. So the kind of mechanics that you use in that, you have breakout rooms, escape rooms, competitions, and the components are rankings, you have missions, you have badges. So I know these components and mechanics may seem a bit, vague to us, but we're going to do some examples. So now let's check some applications on Genially. So I'm going to take us to the Genially app and show us some examples that display in which these concepts were used to design courses. So one moment. So talking about quizzes, I'm sure a lot of us are aware, we're familiar with quizzes, right? Is there anyone here that has not done a quiz before? Please put in the chat if you haven't done a quiz before. Okay, so like I explained, you want to do an interactive quiz. This is a Genially template. Let's confirm that we can see my screen that I just shared with us. Let's confirm if you can see it. Great. So I just picked this quiz. It's a template, and I'm going to show us what the flow is like. So now you have, so we can see some interact, provide context. So you have your question here, and then you put in the answers. One of the answers, of course, will be wrong. The other one right. You have true or false questions, where people can, it's basically quiz concepts. So you have this, questions. We write a question with one or more correct answers, and one of them is correct, one of them is right. If you pick the correct one, there's a response that, there's a feedback that people get. So, that sound is part of, that sound is part of gamified experience where when they make the right decision, there is a sound. Okay. Let me go back and pick the wrong one. Let's see what sound we'll get. That's a gamified experience. This is a quiz where it's interactive rather than just having quiz where people just pick. You just give them something that excites them and makes them want to keep going, which is what gamification is all about. It's about motivating people through their emotions or by persuading them. And there are other parts of the, so right now, is there anyone here that has a Genially account? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a link in the chat right now. It's free to, this is a Genially account. So go to that website and create an account. There are free accounts that has a lot of free, features that you can use. You can try. So when you sign up and you go to the template, just click on quiz or click on game and gamification. You see the different options there where you can practice all the things that we are learning today. So that's an example of a quiz. I'm going to show us another one now, which is about escape room and all that, how, the layout is and all that. Adventure breakout. If you are having issues signing up to the Genially, to create a free Genially account, please let me know here. I've just put the link in the chat now. So I'm going to share another example of how you can use it in a course. I've just showed us a quiz, which is for one of the elements that you can put in a course. In a course that is reward based. So I'm going to show us one that is level and progression based. Okay, let me share. Okay. So, even the layout of the background shows some form of adventure. Look at this one, says breakout adventure. And then if you want to try this up, it says start. There's a place where one can start. And they can already see these different stages that you have to go through, starting from destination 1 to 2. When you click on 1, there's an activity for you to do. Welcome to the IC North. Here, code is not only a challenge, blah blah blah. Start. Question what? 1. What magical object is hidden in the glacier? This is a course that has to do with snow and all that. So you put your correct wrong answers. When you click on 1, it gives you a sound. Let me go back. And then I just want us to look at the elements that are used here. The elements used here, you can see the red sign that shows that, okay, there's a treasure here. There's a map. That's part of the element. There's a treasure chest on the left here. This is like an adventure, but it's a course. As they open one, get to one destination, there are questions that they will answer, or there's something they will read about before they move to the other one. That is gamifying learning rather than just list. For example, let's say we have a course now on time mastery. There are different types of time. There are different ways that you can manage your time. Instead of just listing it as a product, as a PowerPoint or PDF file, you want to list out, you want to start by doing number 1, this type of time management is this. You want to ask questions. You make it look like an adventure. People just feel like they're playing a game. Meanwhile, they are learning in the process. All right. So that's a template that can be used for adventure kind of learning, where you need to learn one thing to the other. And then we have talked about the social and collaborative one. This is one in which there are activities. You put people probably in breakout rooms and tell them or you have teams be involved in a particular challenge in which they solve a problem, and then there's a reward for it. That is social. It doesn't have to be e-learning. Does anyone have a question? So I don't have a question at this stage before we move to the next thing. Great. So I take it that we understand. So we've looked at the application. So now I want us to go through designing a gamified learning. Now we want to design gamified learning. How do we actually do that? What steps do we have to go through? What do we need to do? That's what we want to do now. We're going to be learning everything, the process. For those of us that are already in learning design, we know RD, there's analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation. How does this play out in a gamified learning? Whether you're using your SAM or backward method of the process of design, whatever you're using, iterative, how does this play out in gamified content? I'll share my screen now. One moment, please. Where is this screen? Okay, where is this? Okay. Please confirm if you can see my screen. So let's go. Great, thank you for that. So we're going to be looking at designing gamified content. All right. And these are the stages that you go through. First of all, you need to understand the objective. Just like in every learning design, every project, what is the objective of this learning? What are we trying to achieve? What type of, who are the people? What is the organizational goal actually for doing this training? We need to understand that. And when we understand that, you define your objective and choose your KPI. For example, if you are doing a course for sales, a course that is supposed to increase sales, for every learning designer, you know that learning design is a strategy to solve a problem or to help people improve their performance or increase return on investment, right? What is that objective? Is it to increase sales? And how do you now measure that? What is the KPI that you are going to see to say we have been successful? And that, for example, you have objective is to make sales. And what's the KPI is that you have this number of sales or you have this number of contracts signed up. So you want to do a training for the sales team that will help them to sell better. So how do you know that they have been successful? After 3 months, they must have been able to, get this number of sales in or make this amount of money, right? So that's the objective. When you do that, then you need to now understand your people. Training is always people-centered. Understanding your target audience. We've talked about 3 target audiences to determine what type of gamification. We have the reward-based, the social and collaborative, and we also have the, progression-based. Who are our target audience? Um, is it and that's also the players? Is it an achiever? Is it a socializer? Or is it an explorer? Explorer is a level and progression based. The socializer is a social and collaborative, and the achievers are the reward based. You need to understand who your player is. When you know who your player is, then you can decide what mechanics and what components. I hope that is all adding together. But you always start with the objective for the organization, and then you understand your people, the target audience. Then you need to understand what kind of, when you understand the player, then you can define your gamification theme or gamification type. So now you've understood your objective and people, then you now choose your type. You choose your format. Under format, we have, you now choose the appropriate format, which is based on your audience and objective. So now I'm going to go back again to these mechanics. Now we're talking about the mechanics now. Under mechanics, we can see quizzes, simple interactive games, roulette, team, board game competition. So you understand your users, you understand the objective. You now decide what formats I'm going to use, which is like your dynamics. What will be the flow? Is it going to be a story? Is it going to be simulation? Is it going to be breakout rooms? Is it going to be escape rooms? What is it going to be like? Is it going to be that they move from one stage to the other, completing one before the other? Is it going to be scenario based? Is it going to be activities? And being specific about the activity is now what this format is about. Okay. Is it going to be role play, escape, and all that? I think somebody is unmuted and I can hear the sound from here. Can we all mute ourselves? If you have any question as we go on, please feel free to ask. Okay, thank you for muting yourself. So now you understand your objective, you understand the goal, the learners, and then you now choose your format. Am I going to have quizzes? What will be the flow? Then the dynamics here, you're thinking about the main elements, you're thinking about the story, what is the challenge? Is there going to be some form of progression, socialization and all that? You choose your dynamics. Then what's the mechanics, which is what are the rules of the game? What will be are we going to be using points? Are we going to be using gifts, levels? Are there going to be levels? You choose that, and then you now get to a point where you develop. Okay, so this is the design. Designing gamification is not so much about what people say and interact with. There's a lot of thoughts that goes into it, what we are trying to achieve for the organization, which will relate to your analysis in ADDIE. The designing, choosing, then in your analysis, you do your persona analysis, which is your target audience. Now designing, choosing the format, the dynamics, the mechanics, that's part of the design. We've done analysis design. Then development is when you now create the content that people will relate to. Is it going to be in form of worksheets, quizzes, face-to-face, online, you do all that. So the development now is where I've showed us two templates on 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 Genially that we can use. But I'm going to take us back there to see how you can choose the different templates based on what you want to achieve. So now, example of components that you use, you have your character, you have your points, you have your levels, your widgets, your badges. These are examples of things that you're going to be using. The widgets are like, when you decide, for example, that you want to have different stages, the places where you choose like lesson 1, lesson 2, what are you going to use as the widgets that people will click on that takes them to all the information, and then the badges that you use. These components, you can get them from different places. We had a free workshop sometime last year on how you can get, if you go to our YouTube channel, you're going to see the early YouTube channel, you're going to see where we used how you can get characters from PowerPoint, how you can get characters from Canva, and then take them to PowerPoint and download each one as a picture. Genially too has its own. There are also Google Pictures, pictures on Google Pixabay and all of those places that you can get all of these things from. So I'm going to show us more more templates that we can use. I'll say start trying out different templates. Don't just go into trying to do everything from scratch. You want to see how these things play out, the dynamics. And there's one more thing that I'm going to show us before we close, which is the tricks of gamification, also on Genially. Okay, I've stopped sharing. So let me go to Genially. If you have any question, any comments, put in the chat. All right. Okay, great. There it is. Gamification tricks. Okay. Is there anyone that has been able to connect to the Genially app and you've seen different things? Can you share with us what you're seeing? So I'm going to show us some gamification tricks that we can use. We must have seen some things online, which these are like possibilities in gamification design using Genially. And when you understand the concept and you now decide that you want to use another authoring tool, then you can now put things together. All right. So these are some of gamification tricks on Genially. Like hidden objects, you can have, in this place, if you come here, they say to create this challenge, you activate option of draggable elements so that users can move the documents, correct documents, use audio interactivity, correct sound, reveal interactive so that the correct message appears. These are the tricks that you can use. And in our next class, we're going to touch on all this in audio interactivity, how to reveal the draggable elements. These are some other tricks that can be used. Design mode, you put your course in design mode to drag stuff around. Okay. Another trick of gamification is secret messages. You have, when you click something else appears. This is how to do it. Audio testing. Put a puzzle in a place. Cut the puzzle image into different pieces. Activate the drag and drop option on each piece, and you have the audio interact. This is also, you can use audio, the same audio sound, those sound effects that we just see. You can use it in your, give a discount for the next concert, sort. This one is about sorting. And then you ask people to sort which one comes before the other. This is gamification. I'm sure we've seen activities like this before. And then catching challenges where catch 7 Genially interactions in 10 seconds. You have 10 seconds. There's a timer already that in 10 seconds it's gone. It's gone already. So let me go back and, it's like you're playing a game. You want people to do something in a period of time. You've set the timer. There's a timer option. So reveal. Oh no, I missed that. It looks like game, but this is like a quiz, like a test. You've taught people certain things and you want them within a period of time to recall what they've done. That's for a recall kind of activity. You set a timer. I'll take us to where we can see all of those. So these are simple tricks that we can use. And then there's also password. There's encrypted. So I'll take us to, so if anybody is interested in knowing more about Genially, there's okay, I'll take us there now. I'm in the Genially app now. I've opened, let me start from, I'll quickly take us through that in 15 minutes and we'll be done. Oh, Steve. Oh, thank you for Elisa. It's a cook platform. Yes. So Steven just shared something here. Let's see what you shared. Okay, this is so this thing that you shared here. Okay, you're showing to me that you have connected, you have registered. Great. So I'm on Genially now. If I search for games, so you can see there are different things that you can do on Genially, games and challenges. You can do quizzes and forms. You can do presentations. You can create a course. There are templates there. Normal course, infographics, digital publishing, videos, blank creations, and all. Team templates. These are the places that you can pick a template from. So let's say we go to quizzes and form. These are templates that you can use for different things. I think the template that I showed us earlier today was taken from here, something Akira. You can see different, just pick them. If you pick different ones, you see the one that goes with your objective. But I must warn you, don't go searching for templates and searching for design before you understand your learners. If you really want to create a course, let's say you want to play around with the platform now, you can do that. But if you really want to create a course, understand your learners, understand the training need, understand the objective, think of the right dynamics, mechanics, and components that work for those people and for your objective. And that will help you to know which templates to choose. I hope that makes sense to us. Does that make sense? So here now, I'm going to choose, I'm going to choose something. I just want to show us where we can see all of those tricks that I showed us now. I mean, it takes practicing, right? let's say I decide to choose, I'll just choose any template for now. But when you are choosing a template and you're in the platform, so if you come to text, of course, you can always choose your text here. The images, if you want to, if you need images for your course, you can take from here. Show more. There are GIFs. You can use GIFs. You know, GIFs will be very nice for interactive and gamified courses. And then other resources like icons, connectors, illustrators, and all they are there. Interactive elements are here. Have a window. You know, let's say for example, you have a button. All of these interactivities are the things that we're going to do in the next class, but you can just explore. And then there's audio. You know, if you want to add your own audio, add links, go to page. This is a timer. You know, this is a coin. If you want to time like a quiz, coins that you can use as, you know, components, dice, they're all here. You know, these are your widgets that you can put on a picture and people click on it and something appears. That's for interactivity. Interactive questions, you know, I showed us some questions in which some that you can slide up and down, some that, you know, and there are smart blocks, you know, diagrams, processes, tables and graphs that you can use for your, I showed us something that had a map. So you can see all these are there. And if you want to insert your own image, audio, background, you know, you can do that. Pictures here, you can insert another one. And now the last one is the pages. So this usually displays the pages of your course that you are creating. It shows here. This is a template that we picked up. If you want to present or, you know, preview, you click present. No, let's do preview. If you want to download and all that, you present. But if you want to preview it and see what the flow is like, so that probably is wrong. So when you have templates, you are able to choose, you're able to see which question, where you should put the right question or right question, and the sound is already put into it. And then send. Let's move to the next one. I don't know why it's not moving to the next one. This is another thing, you know. And this is a template that can be used. And I've showed us all the places where you can get the interactivity that you want. So one last thing that I want to show us on Genially is if you come to this top right corner of the app, you're going to see Academy at the bottom. So if you go there, it takes you to the Academy. Okay. It just basically opens a new page. There are different topics. If you want to know how to use Genially for different things, this is where you come to. Once you have you've signed up, there are different courses on Genially. There's the introduction. What we've done today's introduction is how to gamify learning. But there are other courses on gamification. This is introduction to Genially. You know, I'll say go through these courses. So if there's anything that you like to learn, is it how to use it for normal presentation, fun learning, interactive visual communication? There are 10 pages, different courses that you can, and some of them are 45 minutes. Just look at what interests you now that you want to do with Genially. With the free option, there are a lot of things you can do. There are certain features you won't be able to use if you don't use the paid version. However, the paid version, you don't need to break the bank. You know, gamification for companies, create a team with Genially, you know, micro learning. You must have heard about animation for story, different things that you can do on Genially. So let's explore. There are different levels. If you want to choose based on your level, whether beginner, I would suggest if you haven't used Genially before, start with the beginner, then the course type, and then what sector are you, education or business, So these are the topics you can choose from here. Let me take us back for us to see how affordable it can be. It is. Let's see, where is that? Should be activities download. I think I stumbled on it earlier today. Okay, let me look for it and share with us. So has anybody created anything in class right now with a template? This is my space showing all the things that I've created. Genially. Has anyone done anything so far? Okay, so here, yeah, okay. Okay. In 3 minutes, you'll be done. So I'm back in my space. This will show all the courses that you have created. So if you come here, up here, upgrade your plan. I'm using the Pro plan, which is, however, you have the Pro plan. The lowest one, the cheapest one is about £8 per month, which is less than 20,000. So if you have a project where you're creating a course for someone, you know how much you can create a course. I mean, once you can start with a free plan, have everything in place, and then do it for a month. If you want to do yearly plan, you can do it. So of course, there are other ones, master and author, but I'm saying with even the cheapest pro plan, there's a lot you can do. However, if you sign up now, you have the free plan, and that free plan, there's a lot you can do. There's so much you can do learning on your own. So I want us to put in the chat anything that really stuck to us in today's course, in today's learning. So what I want us to do as assignment for the part 2, first of all, I want us to put in the chat if we want to